All right, friends, we are moving on to investigation 2, hot water, cold water with our water unit. We have some really exciting experiments to try with this investigation, but first we have to understand some key vocabulary words. So if you could kind of turn in your science notebook to page 11, you will notice that the very first 4 words here are already on your page for you. We're going to add some more because there are up to 10 words that we really have to know and understand so that we're ready to try our investigations and do well with them. All right, so the first word is thermometer. And most of you know what a thermometer is because you know parents take your temperature with a thermometer, right? Thermometers can be used on your head, in your ears, under your arms, in your mouth, okay? And it basically tells what your body temperature is. But the actual scientific definition of a thermometer is a thin column of liquid okay, that expands when it gets hot and pushes up in a thin tube. And pushes up in a thin tube. Okay, that's the scientific definition of a thermometer. Number 2 is the word expand. When something expands, okay, it takes up more space. Okay, to take up more space. And with reference to our water unit, it's important for you to understand that this is what happens when water is heated, which happens when water is heated. I'll pause there for you to jot that down. So if expand is taking up more space, contract is actually to take up less space. Okay, so to take up less space. Okay, so instead of going this way, it goes in that way. To contract is to take up space, which happens when water is cooled. Okay, so more space for heated and less space for cooled. All right, so you can pause the video, make sure you have that listed. The next word that we're going to look at is the word density. You're going to hear me say more dense or less dense. Okay, you're going to hear those words quite a bit as we do this second investigation. Density is how much space an object takes up, its volume. How much space an object takes up. Oops. Meant to say, hopefully that takes, should be there, takes up. And I'm going to put in parentheses its volume. We'll be talking about volume in math. That's density. All right, so we're going to add another word. This is going to be number 5. Number 5 is going to be the word convection. convection. And convection is the rising of warm water, the rising of warm water and sinking of cold water. We're going to be doing some experiments where you're going to see the water rise and then sinking of the cold water. So that's number 5. Number 6 is actually a synonym for the word float, and that word is actually the word buoyant. Buoyant. Anything that is buoyant is able to float. For example, an ice cube is buoyant because it floats in water. There's lots of different things that are buoyant. Number 7, we're going to talk about glaciers. And you may have seen a glacier because you know it's frozen ice, or you may have heard of a glacier, but what exactly is it? It's actually flowing ice. Rivers of ice that gravity moves downhill. Rivers of ice that gravity moves downhill. So you might be wondering, well, what is gravity? Well, that's the next word that you need to know. Gravity is a force that tries to pull two objects toward each other. A force that tries to pull two objects toward each other. Okay, that's gravity. Okay, we have 2 more words that we're going to talk about. Number 9 is the word altitude. Altitude. Now, if you've ever been in an airplane, you may have heard the pilot, okay, say that once they reach a certain altitude that you're free to get up and go around the plane, things like that. So what that means is it's basically how high something is compared to the ground or sea level. And that's called the altitude. The altitude is how high something is compared to the ground or sea level. And boys and girls, we have just one more, and that's number 10. Okay? And number 10 is actually the word insulation. Insulation. You may have heard your parents talking about how something has been insulated in your house, like behind the walls. What insulation is covering something to stop heat, sound, or electricity from escaping or entering. And that's it, my friends. We are now ready to move on to do some scientific experiments.